Hey guys, it's Israel back again with Heavy Metal Reptiles. Got Firestorm out today because the wife pointed out that we don't have him in enough videos, and for him to be my favorite, it was kind of an insult for her to tell me that. So, we got Firestorm out today. The reason I don't put him in as many videos is because I bond and love on my Firestorm when no one else is around, because we have a special connection. He's my boy. Okay, so today we're going to talk about 5 things to look out for with your pet snakes. This is going to kind of run into some points of why it's so important to handle and keep an eye on your snakes and be checking on them daily and having that good relationship and understanding their attitudes and things. So we'll touch on that as we go. Along with, we're going to have a lot of pictures that pop up on the screen through this episode for examples and things, because if any or all my snakes had these problems a lot to where I could actually show you guys, you probably wouldn't watch my videos. So we're going to use pictures instead. Firestorm, you ready for this? So we're going to talk about whistling when they breathe. And the reason we're going to talk about this first is because my second ball python was Courtney. If you watched earlier videos, you know that we got Kurt, which was my very first, with a parasite, and he ended up passing away not long after we got him. But Courtney, about 2 weeks after having her, she actually ended up with a respiratory infection. And that's your first kind of sign, usually, with a respiratory infection, is whistling when breathing. While we're on the respiratory infections, I'll give a full video about that eventually. But for right now, we'll just talk about a couple of the telltale signs, which is the whistling when you're breathing, bubbling out the mouth, and mucusy stuff around their mouth. So with Courtney, we didn't use a vet. We actually did some home adjustments and let her immune system take care of it. I believe that we are destroying these guys' immune systems by taking them to the vet every 5 seconds. So it worked out. Like I said in previous videos, if it gets to a point we need a vet, definitely the care of the snake or the lizard or whatever comes first, so we will. Just a little tip though, because it took a lot. I use cocoa fiber, and if you have just straight cocoa fiber down, I use a mix now. I used to just use straight cocoa fiber. If you have a mix down though, this isn't as big of a deal. But if you, right here along the jawline, I started seeing that brown. That one stripe always freaks me out with you. I started seeing this brown, like almost like glue around Courtney's mouth, and I noticed she wasn't refusing food. I thought it was because of the respiratory infection. When I started seeing that, I investigated in to see that she wasn't actually able to open her mouth. Warm Q-tip or lukewarm water on your Q-tip, on a Q-tip, and then you just take it and you drag it along the outside of their mouth, and it starts to break that stuff away and kind of wet it down, loosen it up a little bit. That is a downfall to cocoa fiber. It's still some of the best substrate you can use though. Just wanted to throw that in there. But whistling is definitely a sign that there's an issue with your snake when they're breathing. Normally it's a respiratory infection. I think I haven't dealt with a cracked lung yet, thank God. But I think that could be a cause of, or a symptom to a cracked lung also. Don't quote me on that. But just anytime your snake's whistling when breathing, you need to start investigating. If you do not have the knowledge yourself to handle it, or you've looked into it and you've lost, it is good to go to a vet and see what's going on. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to go and start doing antibiotics, especially because normally they want to give you a shot for these guys, which can be very nerve-wracking. So if you can avoid that, it's probably going to be better for you and the snake as far as stress goes. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one here. Okay, my wife did just bring it to my attention that I did not include two of more very common things that happen with snakes on this list, which is scale rot and mouth rot. We're going to put pictures on either side here. You got to make them fit in my hands, okay? Or on top of Firestorm, but we're going to put them here so you guys can see that too. I didn't even think about it. This was more of a behavior thing was what I was focusing on. You're probably going to know if you start seeing scale or mouth rot, you're going to be like, that's not right away. So, but we're going to go ahead and put that in there, make sure you guys do know what it looks like. Anyways, number 2 is going to be stuck shed / eye caps. The reason that this can be an issue is stuck shed is usually a indicator that your humidity's off. A stuck eye cap, believe it or not, and this is told to me from a vet, so anyone who's going to argue with me on it, you can just, go somewhere else. I would say other words, but this isn't a podcast. I think I'm going to do a podcast. We're going to talk about that at the end of the video. But stuck shed and eye caps, usually the shed is an indicator your humidity is low, and that can lead to a cracked lung, along with other types of illness and problems. But normally that's like your most common is it leads to a cracked lung. The other thing with eye caps is, and this is where people might say I'm wrong, but vet approved, told from a vet, it's usually an indication of your snake actually being sick, ill in some way, whether it be internally or something externally going on. Usually the eye caps being stuck is a telltale sign for something not being right personally with your snake, not just a husbandry issue or a temperature issue, an actual problem with your snake. So we're going. Sorry guys. We're moving on to number 3 now. I went ahead and went up and got Perry out because I was going to get Black Widow out, but Black Widow, for whatever reason, ends up with a lot of screen time for some reason. So we got Perry out. So we're hanging out with Perry and Firestorm now. Perry's actually a she, I think. No, I sexed her. She's a girl. Hey, I'm going to do a video on that sometime soon. I want to show you guys a better way to sex your snakes, other than what you normally see online where they take the tail and wrap it and like, we're going to do that a better way. There's a better way to do it where you don't have as much risk of rupturing anything or hurting, prolapsing anything or anything like that. There's a better way I would like to show you guys that if done right, you get the same results and know whether you got a male or female, and it causes less stress and pain for the snake, because I can't imagine the whole is good or not painful at all. They say it isn't, but I don't believe it. Anyways, we're going to talk about unnormal aggression. This is one of those sections that fall under knowing your snake. I spend roughly a half hour plus handling each snake every week. At least a half hour, sometimes more, depending on whatever. If I got a lot to do that day and I got to get Firestorm out, Firestorm might only be out for a half hour. If I'm not doing anything, Firestorm can be out for up to 2 hours sometimes with me. Knowing your snake's important with your handling too. Just knowing how stressed your snake is. Perry usually is really good with being out, so he'll chill with me sometimes for 2 or 3 hours. It all depends on your snake. And you can get to know your snake too just by simply, which is something you really should be doing also, is simply sitting in your room wherever you're keeping them and watching the behavior of them. Perry, since I've got him, I put a humidity hut in to help with some shed, because his first shed was a little chompy and I didn't like it, so I wanted him to have the option for a humidity hut. Now he sits in his humidity hut 24/7. His humidity's fine, I promise. But he just sits in his humidity hut nonstop for whatever reason. But that's just something, watch your guys' snakes in their enclosures, how they're acting. When you're handling them, watch how they're acting. Baphomet today was in a weird mood. I knew off the rip. He didn't bite or get too aggressive with anybody or anything like that. He was just in a weird mood, but I knew it. I was watching him. Now, if you're seeing that your snake is in an uncommonly weird mood or an unnormal aggressive mood for long periods of time, there's a lot of things that could be attached to that, such as mites, illness, and other things. So that's very important to know, and you wouldn't think much of it. You're thinking it's a snake, it's having a bad day, but if it's continuous and it's an unnormal amount of aggression, it's something you want to think about and watch out for, kind of look into. Nothing to freak out about, but something that you want to keep an eye on. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next section. Okay, so number 4. This one's a weird one, but you want to watch too. And if you're spot cleaning properly and spending the time that you should be in your room with your snakes, you're going to notice this. How often is your snake using the restroom? Or how often is your snake not using the restroom? Black Widow, I was having trouble. She hadn't pooped since I got her, which was about 2 months. 2 months, so you're talking 8 feeds, and she hadn't pooped. I was trying things about week number 3. She still hadn't pooped, and I started noticing. Kind of did a rundown with her, nothing out of the ordinary other than she was a little backed up. Started doing soaks and electrolytes mixed in there with it, and working with her. And she finally went, but that can also be a sign of a lot of different, you be nice to your brother. That could be a sign of a lot of different things also. It's weird, but if you're spot cleaning and things, you kind of have an idea when your snake is going to use the restroom after it eats. For Firestorm here, I got about 4 days after he eats and he uses the restroom typically. Perry can usually take about a week sometimes, and then he's pooping. Black Widow, I really couldn't tell you quite yet, seeing how we're just now kind of getting her on that cycle and she's going frequently. Baphomet's about 2 days. Courtney, 4 days roughly. So I kind of know when they're going to be going, and if they aren't going within those days and it's numerous weeks in a row, you should start looking into and checking out what's going on. We're going to go ahead and move on to the last one, which is one you guys would really want to watch. Again, I'm going to stress this for this section. Please watch your snake's behavior. Constant behavior. Stop it. You want to know how your snake is and its attitude and things, but for this one specifically, you're going to need to be in the room, again, just studying your snake. And that's why I love these guys, is I never stop learning, whether it's about the species, morphs, or just my snakes in general and their personalities. It's about soaking. You want to watch how much your snake is soaking. You don't have to stop them from soaking, but soaking too much can be a sign of constipation, which goes back to the pooping thing, which can lead to a lot of other different things. But mainly it's your first telltale sign usually for mites. If you have mites or have had mites, don't be ashamed of it. We've had mites, and everybody that is collecting reptiles at one point or another has gotten mites. I've talked about the podcast before. They're a company called Port City Pets, I think is what they switched the name of the company to. They have a podcast called The Ground Up. They'll tell you, if you collect reptiles, you're going to get mites. The guy who runs that company breeds colubrids, corn snakes mainly. I think he's still doing a little bit of carpet pythons. I'm not for sure on that. I couldn't tell you to be 100%, but he does do corn snakes, and he put his corn snakes next to a drafty window for brumation and ended up with mites. We don't know how that happens. Usually you're going to carry them in from a pet store. It's one of the downfalls to reptile shows, is you can carry them in very easily from a reptile show. Unfortunately, even though they're breeders, certain breeders just do not care about their snakes. So you will occasionally come across mites and things at reptile shows. I think that's where we even got ours from. So it's just kind of something to think about, and like I said, know your snake. Baphomet soaks about once a week. Firestorm here really doesn't soak all that often. He usually just sticks his face in the water and gets his drink and then moves on with life. Perry soaks once every 3 weeks. That usually is when I see him in there. Black Widow doesn't really soak that much. Zoom will soak about once to 2-3 times a week, depending on his meal. Actually, if he has a big meal, he'll soak. Actually, he's soaked for days before after a nice big meal, which is uncommon. So it's just knowing your snakes. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and move to the outro part. It's my favorite. So kind of here in closing, I want to talk to you guys about something that I'm thinking about doing. Me and the wife have started a podcast. If you guys are into paranormal things, it's called Planet Supernatural. We're trying to do like Reddits and things and discuss them over the podcast. We're looking for people to send in paranormal experiences that they've had, but I'm also thinking about doing one for reptiles. If you guys are interested, it'll kind of be like an uncensored podcast, and hopefully I'll be able to talk to some keepers around my area, get in touch with other keepers throughout the United States and do some FaceTimes with them and things, and kind of get another perspective from another type of keeper. But let me know what you guys think about that idea. The podcast with me and my wife just kind of started out with her wanting to do something but not wanting to be in front of a camera. I'm joking. She didn't want to be in front of a camera, so we started the podcast, and it's just kind of fun. Figured it'd be kind of something cool too to bring to our channel and things. Still helping with. Sorry, buddy. I didn't mean to scare you. Still doing the rehoming, rehabilitating. We have done some Craigslist inquiries, and Craigslist is scary. That's really all I can tell you about that, and the reason we haven't really went through with any of that. Seems like they're kind of shady. I've seen Facebook posts where they're using other people's names now, and saying that they have pets, that they need to rehome and things. So just trying to be careful at the same time, but still doing that. If you need help, reach out to me, and we will do what we can to help you guys out, whether it's information or if you just can't take care of them anymore, we can work with you there and get the animal what it needs. Really looking to get in and start really investing some time into that. I think that it would be good for the animals, and not only that, the people out there that are looking for one that is going to love and care for it once they get back to 100%. We have a vet now, I think I mentioned, that we're working close with, that's about to see Lilith here soon. So yeah, we got the links up in the description. If you didn't watch the previous video, it's now in the YouTube description, so go follow us on all platforms. Facebook is a group, so we can talk, discuss. Once we get a couple people in there and we can really start having discussions, would be cool. So yeah, rock on, friends. See you in the next video.